Honestly, I never thought I'd be making a video like this. I never in my wildest dreams would have imagined that I would make a video like this, just because of the sheer fact of, like, growing up for me, I think like a lot of people, I was, and still am, very, very much a fan of the Harry Potter series. I was very much a fan of J.K. Rowling herself. I really just felt like she was kind of an inspiration to me just as an author, because of the fact of, like, where she came from and what she went through and, like, what she did to get to where she is today. That was a huge deal for me. Like, that was an inspiration, and I wanted to be that so badly. It's really disappointing to see everything that's been going on with her lately, and just kind of like all of the things that have piled up over, you know, the last few years. I'm really trying to figure out, like, how you differentiate the art from the artist, right? And I think something like Harry Potter is probably more able to be separated from its artist, just for the sheer fact of, like, especially in my case, and I think a lot of people right now, the popularity of, like, the fandom's canons are almost more well known at this point than the actual book canon. You know what I mean? I think kind of as a collective group, most of us have decided that Cursed Child is a joke. A lot of us are not a fan of the epilogue. And I think for a long time now, there's been different things that we've just been disappointed with. And so fans of the books have just decided, you know what? I don't really care what you have to say on this as the book's creator. We know what we want more, and we know what's better, and we know what makes more sense. And I think if any series or any book in general could be separated from its author, it's definitely Harry Potter. Because, I mean, at least for me and a lot of people I know, I feel like at this point we've already kind of drifted so far from what the author's intentions were anyway, that we're already in this universe in which we have separated it. You know what I mean? And I think that that's ultimately a good thing, especially for us. And that's ultimately something that has been not, I don't want to say beneficial, but I feel like it's better for us because, you know, listen, obviously with this latest issue with the whole Nagini thing, which I didn't really want to make a video about this because, to be honest with you guys, I don't really feel like I'm necessarily qualified to talk about this issue. I feel like we should be listening to people who it personally affects. You know what I mean? I think we should be listening to those people and lifting their voices up. So for me, it's like, I don't need to make this video specifically about that, because we should be listening to people who actually are Asian, who are like, okay, this is what the fuck's going on, this is why this is fucked up. Listen to those people on that situation. I can just tell you that it's extremely disappointing. And I'm at the point where it's kind of like, you know, finding yourself in the situation where you feel like, I can't fuck with you anymore. You know what I mean? Like, this author who has created this series that's, like, so important to my childhood, I feel like I'm just so disappointed and so let down by a lot of the things she's done over the years collectively. And it's just like, this latest thing, and you're just like, oh my god. And then for it to be, you know, the transphobia thing was last week, and I thought, okay, you know what, I'm not letting you off the hook for that, but I'm also not going to change my stance on the series. But now this thing too, and I'm like, you know what, listen, I can't defend you anymore. And God knows she doesn't need me to defend her. She's got more money than God, so I get it. And it really doesn't matter what some tiny-ass YouTuber with like 160 subscribers thinks. I'm kind of at the point where I just feel like I don't know where to go from here. You know, it's hard for me to support someone who continuously does things that undermine what their series is supposed to be about and what they're supposed to stand for. They continuously undermine that. And then when they're called out on it, it's very much like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm the only one with knowledge of anything, and I'm not going to apologize for it. And that's sort of the most frustrating thing, is it's a complete and total lack of concern for what other people feel about this. It's kind of like, well, you're wrong, I'm right, and I don't really care what you think. And that is such an immature attitude that it's actually kind of hilarious. And so for me, it's just kind of like, at this point, there's no defense for that anymore. You know what I mean? I feel like I cannot sit here and continuously make these videos and say, you know, I know she's done this thing, but like, I still have to love her because she created this series that I love. And that's just ridiculous. And it just makes me feel like, okay, girl, you're the fool, I guess, because I'm continuously putting myself in this situation where I'm trying to defend this person because I feel like I owe her something. When I was younger, Harry Potter was the reason I wanted to become a writer, because I loved the books so much and they meant so much to me as a young person. Never really liked reading until reading Harry Potter, and then I became very, very much in love with books. And I still to this day am, because of that. I'm disappointed so much. And it's like, at what point do I say, you know, yeah, you created something that inspired me to become a writer, but if anything now, the thing you're inspiring me to do is the exact opposite of everything you're doing. And I guess that's not the worst thing. I guess being a lesson of like what not to do is a legitimate thing, but like that's not, I'm sure, what she's going for. Listen, I can't defend this, and I can't continuously do these videos where I'm like, you know, let's give her a 50th chance. Let's give her like a 90th chance because she created something that was so special to us as young people. And I still know people who would defend her to the death and who would defend the series to the death. And what I've kind of realized is, like, I know this is very sacrilegious to say, and I'm going to say it anyway. I'm at the point where, with all that I've come to love in like the fandom and stuff like that, I could probably be okay if I didn't reread the books ever again. I tried at one point to reread the books, and I got as far as the middle of the third, or like a few chapters into the third, and I was like, I cannot do this again. And so I've only ever technically read the books once, which I think some people are like, you can't really consider yourself a fan if you haven't reread the books like 50 more times. But that is the reality. I've only read the books once. I've, you know, listened to certain sections on audiobook a few times. So I jump around for things. And honestly, I've tried to reread certain things for like research purposes, for other projects that I have in the works. Honestly, I don't know how that's gonna go. But I'm just at the point where I'm just kind of disappointed with it all. And you know, I'm not, as far as the books are concerned, or like her other work, you know, I wasn't impressed with The Casual Vacancy. I certainly wasn't really impressed with anything to do with the Robert Galbraith stuff. So for me, if I don't read any more books that she's written, I'm not going to be that disappointed about it. As far as this is concerned, and, you know, Cursed Child was a disaster, so even if that becomes a movie, I'm almost certainly never going to see it. And so all that leaves me with is Fantastic Beasts. And honestly, I feel like I hate feeling like this. I hate sitting here and making this video and like having to make this video, because I feel like this is not what any fan wants, you know? And to be in this situation where, you know, we've known she's been George Lucasing the shit out of her books forever. Forever now, she has been doing this thing of giving more information than we ever needed, telling us things that we don't need to know that mean absolutely nothing, you know, outing Dumbledore. As a kid, I thought was really cool because I was like, oh my god, here's this gay character. And as someone who identified as gay at the time, I was like, oh my god, this is like a big deal. But now I see it as like, okay, cool. You know, guess what? Dumbledore was kind of a shitty person anyway, so I'm not really that impressed that she chose him of all people. Outing other people as different things as she had, you know, I was reading this article yesterday about just different random things she's kind of like retconned lately. And then like saying that obviously there are other LGBT students at the school, but we just didn't talk about them because they weren't important. And then of course, you know, apparently nobody's transgender in this world. I don't know how. And you know, there's all of 5 people of color in the world. And then of course there's the, oh my god, I actually forgot about this, to be honest, and then I read this again today. The whole werewolf is an AIDS metaphor. Oh god, why? Ooh, I lost my voice there. Why would you do that? In what world is that a good idea? This is not an issue that I think we should ignore. Like, it was a very serious thing in the 80s and 90s. I don't think that's something that needs a metaphor. Okay, listen. I hate this thing that apparently is a big fantasy trope of using magic as a metaphor for something else. I fucking hate that, okay? I feel like we should still be able to talk about shit. Just because magic is involved does not mean that everything, like, you know, like, there's people who are like, you know, oh, magic or vampirism or werewolfism, that's like a metaphor for homophobia, or a metaphor for like, or like the X-Men is a metaphor for being gay and shit, and like all of, like, I hate that. No, bitch, do not try me on that. If you want to talk about gay people and homophobia and what that's like, fucking talk about it. Do not like do this cloak and dagger shit where you're like, oh, well, like, this is a metaphor for something. No, I'm sorry. That shit would have worked in the 1800s where you didn't talk about that shit, and that was like the whole thing, and like the 1950s. But these days, absolutely not. That does not representation make. I'm sorry. Like, I don't give a fuck. And like, you could use the argument that like wizards having to live in their own secret communities and like hide who they are and all of that is essentially like the epitome of the ultimate gay metaphor, but I'm not fucking accepting that. You can say that, but I'm not fucking having it, okay? I don't care. I don't want to hear it. I'm so sick of those. I'm sick of this idea that like, oh, this is a metaphor for this and this is a metaphor for that. No, okay? We're not doing this right now because that to me is kind of lazy. Like, it sounds creative, and then you realize, like, why does this have to be a metaphor for something? First of all, why can't magic or superheroes just be magic and superheroes? Like, I think it's important to tell queer stories, but like, if you're veiling your superhero story as like, it's really about, you know, having to hide your sexuality or come out or the AIDS crisis, like, please don't. Please just don't. Don't do that. Because then it becomes, well, I don't have to include actual gay people because all of this is just a metaphor for being gay. Like, no, that's not how this works. We're not doing that. I just feel like you think you're clever doing that, and it's not clever. It's not cute. It's not funny. It is not, you know, it's so played out, and I'm just not here for that. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, thank you. I would love to hear your thoughts, honestly. I don't normally ask for comments lately, but with this particular video, I would love to hear people's thoughts on just, you know, what they think of this whole situation, what they think of all of the situations combined. You can find a lot of lists of just different fucked up shit J.K. Rowling has done, and like the queer baiting and everything else, and the constant transphobia and things like that. I'm going to leave a Tumblr post with all of that in the description below. But I would like to hear your guys' thoughts as like, you know, are you still going to be supporting Fantastic Beasts, even if you have like, feel like this situation's really fucked up? Is this something you're going to be supporting? Is this something that you're going to take issue with, or are you just like, I'm done? You know what I mean? I would be very interested to hear that. That's another thing that I've noticed. There's a lot of fat phobia in this books. Like, a lot of the people who are, like, evil, like, especially with the Dursleys, are very heavy. And I don't... And it's commented on a lot. Like, I know this is, like, the end of the video, but I just remembered, like, when you read the first book, there's a lot of, like, cringy moments where Dudley's weight specifically is commented on a lot as if that's the reason he's such an asshole. And I don't really get that. You know what I mean? And, like, Crabbe and Goyle are, like, super evil and heavy. Millicent Bulstrode is considered, like, probably heavy. And, like, you know, there's a whole thing about evil people being, A, really super ugly on the outside, but also, B, really apparently very, very heavy. I think with the exception of, like, Draco Malfoy and maybe a few other people. But, like, even Umbridge is heavy and evil. And it's this really weird thing of, like, what is that? Why is that something that's, like, so common? You know what I mean? And, like, the amount of fat phobia in it is just, like... And that's something actually not a lot of people talk about. But it's really severe in there. And I'm just like, okay. Yet another thing I've continued to ignore over the years, but has probably contributed to some of my low self-esteem. Like... That's a thing. All right. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, bye.